Listen, Pops, and I haven't done a Indian cinema film for a while, and Madras Cafe comes via you guys. That's right. One of you out there has done this recommendation suggestion for me. It's over on Netflix, which was part of the delay because I didn't have Netflix. And Madras Cafe is based on real life events with a lot of name changes and some creative liberties with the time frame. Madras Cafe deals with the Sri Lanka Civil War, and John Douglas plays the main character, Vikram. And the film is set up in the trailer and some other elements as being a lot more dramatic, also being a lot more action, a lot more of a thriller than the film actually is. But I feel like it's a very good film to kind of dive into the late 80s, early 90s Indian history, understanding the relationship between the Tamil people and what happened there in the island and the Civil War, the conflict and the rebellion. It gave me a lot of stuff to think about and chew on that I didn't really know anything about. A lot of the film is just really beautifully done. It's shot well. It's got a lot of very impactful moments. It's got some great scenes and things that are kind of thread together to give you the feel of what's going on, the turmoil of these people, and the horrible things that people were going through. But with that said, his character is just sort of like this guy who's kind of thrust in the middle of all of this. And it's going to basically be a film that's going to remind you of things here in America that we would relate to, like the Iraq films, maybe some of the Afghani films that deal with government intervention. The government has made decisions in the past. They have done things that have impacted other people and other governments. And now the price has to be paid because now you have an oppressed group, people who are going without food and water and basic amenities to survive. And they're rallying behind this man who's kind of like this face of the rebellion. The thing about John Douglas's character is he's kind of got these scenes which have a lot of gravity because the first part of the film is him trying to get embedded where the rebels are. He's kind of like trying to negotiate between this person and that person, figure out how to navigate some sort of peace agreement, all that. Of course, things go sideways. And I will say it's done very well, and you don't quite know who the bad guy is or who the person that's betrayed him and the decisions that he's made. But he's in harm's way. He literally loses a close friend, close ally. He doesn't know exactly what to do. He meets this journalist in the film. She's also an idealist trying to report on the tragedies that are going on there in Sri Lanka and these people, what is happening with this rebellion rise and this basically kind of authoritarian figure. I was reminded very much of like the stuff that we have learned about like Noriega in the 80s and some of the stuff maybe with the Iran Contra affairs. And then, of course, you fast forward to Afghanistan and the way we were funding the Taliban against the Russian invasion there. So I feel like some of those themes and elements are kind of playing out here. And the film is set to culminate with this violent attack that's going to happen on this prime minister, and they're racing around. There's all of these different conflicts and things that are kind of moving very quickly and giving you this setup to can he actually save this former prime minister or not. Now, what I don't like about the film is the fact that he is the narrator of the film, basically. So this happens in a lot of the Indian films, and I don't like this element. So what they do is they set up a reason for one character to tell you the story. So that what that does though is it removes the stakes for that character. In this case, it's the main character. Vikram has gone to a church and he's confessing the actions and the incidents that are playing out in the movie to this priest. He's discussing it. And they cut back to that once or twice. It never is sort of irritating or anything like that, but it removes the entire stakes for Vikram himself. We know he's going to survive. We know he's not going to die. He's not going to sort of like be caught up in the violence, throw himself on the bomb or anything like that because he's the narrator of the film essentially. So that's one of the biggest negatives. The other negative is just that the film doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. It wants to do a little bit of everything. It wants to be an action movie. It wants to have a score and editing, like we're going to be in this fast-paced thriller with action and all of this kind of stuff. And then it also wants to like be a dramatic piece where it just slows right down and we have more intensity and some things that are going to be more stakes driven and more intensity for the audience to kind of be sucked in. So the film itself doesn't quite know what it wants to do. But with all that said, the Sri Lanka Civil War is something I don't know much about, didn't know much about, and it kind of put me down the rabbit hole to at least learn a little bit. Obviously, the stuff that's happening in the film is kind of centered on the 80s and 90s. So the stuff that impacted this or started the first domino effect, so to speak, happened years prior. So it's one of these things where for us in the West, because we don't have this element of our history, we don't have ties to this, we're playing catch up with what some of the things are. It's very easy to get sucked into, oh, these are the good people, or these are the bad people, or I feel this way, or I feel that way. Well, reality is the rebels are being led by this bloodthirsty leader who literally is just not even going to cave to any sort of peace negotiations. It's all about violence. It's all about revenge. It's all about uh, some sort of terrorism that's going to impact civilians as well. And I think that's where an American audience isn't really going to come down on the side of the film as most people think. I don't even know that it breaks our heart that Vikram's outcome and how the film actually plays out with this assassination attempt really hits you in the feels because you don't have a connection to that character that he's racing to save. So I don't know that I care too much. I mean, I don't want any person to die, but the film is full of all sorts of crazy deaths and things like that. There's actually these people that are being trained up and embedded. So it very much mirrors a lot of what here in America we've seen in a lot of our cinema, and obviously we face ourselves with Islamic terrorism. So the parallels are there for that overlap for sure. All in all, Madras Cafe is a very solid film. I'm going to give it about a solid 3 stars. If you're into these kind of dramatic pieces, you want to learn more about history, you want to have something on that just kind of moves pretty quickly. It doesn't get caught too much in the weeds. And Netflix has it for free over there with your subscription service, and you can kind of feel your way along through some of this. I feel like it stays pretty high level. If you're into this kind of film, I think you can add a star. It's more like a 7 out of 10, so it's a 3.5 out of 5. But then if you're looking for the action film that it kind of sells in the trailer, or you think that this will be more, of a shoot 'em up kind of thing, not so much. And it's definitely more of a dramatic piece with a couple of action sequences. And if that's your thing, it's probably a little bit less, more like a 2.5 out of 5. So that's kind of where I land on it. Not something I would really put myself as top tier. It doesn't hold a candle to Sardar Udom, which to me is this incredible historical Oscar-worthy piece, possibly one of the biggest Oscar snubs in all of film history, in my opinion. Film is extremely heavy. Imagine an Indian version of Heartbreak Ridge and Saving Private Ryan and those kinds of films. That's what Sardar Udom is. This feels more like a Iraqi action film, kind of dramatic piece that feels kind of like a Hurt Locker, but with a different type of feel. Couldn't come up with a great example on the top of my head of what this felt like, but all in all, solid. Everything about it is okay, but like I said, it's like it doesn't quite have a clear vision that's worked out that lands on the film and the final product. So that's my take on it. I appreciate the recommendations, suggestions. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. I am Pops.